the band's getting settled, I just want to back this up a little bit, that we can ponder this idea in our hearts and our minds. Everybody take a deep breath. This is truth stated right here this morning about you and me. I am not mistakes that I have made. Everybody say that together. I am not mistakes that I have made. Or any other things that cause me pain. Together. Or any other things that cause me pain. I am not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am not the dreams, the pieces I've left behind. I am light. I am light. I am not the things my family did together. I am not the things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I'm not the pieces of the brokenness inside. So we know what we're not. And simply put, as many great beings have told us, and Jesus said, you are the light of the world. So today is about remembering that. Today is about opening to that. And today is about releasing any kind of beliefs or feelings or ideas that speak to us being less than the brilliance and the magnificence and the light. So let's all take a deep breath. Get comfortable in our chairs. Allow ourselves to be present here in this place, in this moment. Allow our hearts and minds to open to the reservoir of light within us. For me, prayer begins when we pause and take a deep breath. And open to this idea that the one presence dwells within each one of us. One presence has its home within each one of us. We, you and I, are the tabernacle, the cathedral, the synagogue, the mosque, the holy place where Spirit, one presence, resides. We're the Holy of Holies. The idea that the one presence lived in the Ark of the Covenant, we are that covenant of one presence, expressing in billions of different ways. We are the light. So I invite you to listen to the words of a poem that was shared. It was shared in our Artist Way class, and the author is anonymous. So we take a deep breath and listen to this prayer. It's called the Knots Prayer. Dear God, please untie the knots that are in my mind, and in my heart, and in my life. Please untie the knots. Remove the have-nots, the can-nots, the do-nots that I have in my mind. Erase the will-nots, the may-nots, the might-nots that may find a home in my heart. Release from me the could-nots, would-nots, and should-nots that obstruct my life. And most of all, dear God, I ask that you remove from my mind, my heart, and my life all of the am-nots that I have allowed to hold me back, especially the thought that I am not good enough. Amen. So we take a deep breath and we allow Spirit to begin to move around in us and awaken us to the insights of what would be good and powerful for us to release today, energetically, emotionally, mentally. Could be things like fear or judgments or anxieties, regrets. can be those old stories that you tell about yourself or others. Old ideas that keep us separated from love. So we take another deep breath and go into the silence. I invite each one of us to ponder, what shall I release today? And through this service, I invite you to jot down on your little piece of paper a word or two to represent what you choose to release this day. As we allow ourselves to enter into this idea of release, we also breathe into the opening of the heart and mind that happens when we release old ideas or beliefs that hide our light. We give thanks for the one presence that dwells within us. We give thanks for the reservoir of light that lives and breathes and moves through us like a river of life. We give thanks for our hearts and minds that have the capacity to open to the light more and more and more and more and more. And we say, so it is and so let it be. Namaste. So, as we allow the light to come on in the sanctuary, we allow the light to come on in our hearts and our minds. Next Sunday is our White Stone ceremony, but it's preceded by this one, the Burning Bowl ceremony. It's being done in New Thought churches all over the country and other parts of the world. It's symbolically writing on a piece of paper those things that we want to release from our lives, and then burning them in the bowl over here. You notice it's set up by the fire escape door. One time, years ago, it was set up here on the altar and the fire alarm started going off. So, it's a ceremony, it's symbolic of an inner movement of spirit that happens within us when we make a decision for our own awakening, a decision for our own releasing of those ideas that hold us back from knowing the magnificence that we are. We are in our book group doing this book right now, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, one of our modern day mystics. And this little paragraph has 3 stars, so evidently it's important to me. And this is what he says. He says, you can be at peace. Simply put, you can be at peace. Yes, there will be sadness and tears. Though provided that you have relinquished resistance, underneath the sadness you will find a deep serenity, a stillness, and a sacred presence. This is the emanation of being, capital B. This is the emanation of inner peace. This is the higher good that has no opposite. So when we relinquish resistance, what we find underneath the sadness or underneath the fear is this reservoir that some of us call the unexplainable peace. the unexplainable peace. Jesus said it's the peace that passes all understanding. You can't logically explain it. In the midst of the darkest hours, the most confusing times, we open to this reservoir of peace, the unexplainable peace. And that's a part of what happens for me and others when we allow ourselves to release and let go. Have you ever let go of an old story that you lived by for a lot of years? Yeah. Is that the most powerful moment? To release an old story that keeps us separated from our light, from our good, from our peace, or from others. The old stories, we let them go. Finally, we let them go. Is it important to hold on to an old story when all it's doing is wearing you out? No. So that's a good idea, let go of that story. So I titled today's talk, The Courageous Act of Letting Go, because it is a courageous act. So what does burning bowl mean? What does that mean? Anybody? Cleansing. Come on, Paula's not here. Y'all have to work a little harder. Hey, Paula. Everybody turn and say, hey, Paula, on the live stream. New beginnings. Renewal. Strength. What? Purification. Healing. Rebirth. Fire means all those things. Remember in the upper room when the disciples had gathered, Jesus said, wait here until what? Until the Holy Spirit comes. And it is reported that it came with tongues of fire and rested on top of their heads. There's lots of different ways to look at that. But our consciousness opens. Our consciousness opens beyond our fears, beyond our beliefs that drag us down, beyond our old ideas of right and wrong. Our consciousness opens, set on fire, this idea of enlightenment, coming with the burning away of that which is not the highest and most powerful beingness of you. Does that make sense? Release, forgiveness. Anybody you need to forgive? Maybe your name will go on the list. As you think of things you'd like to release, jot that on your little piece of paper during this little talk. Just jot it down. I've already started jotting down my words on my little piece of paper. If you didn't get one, the little pieces of paper are back here in this basket at the top of the stairs with pencils. The burning bowl can mean healing. David and I, through the years, have seen many people release something so small or so huge that it opens up kind of a chink so the light can get in and healing happens in a whole new way. It can be for physical healing, emotional, mental well-being, spiritual enlightenment and awakening. It can be for healing of relationships, generational healing. Everybody take a deep breath. When we release the things that bind us, it affects everyone with whom we are connected. Those living in physical and those living in non-physical. How many are we connected with? One. The one. How many will that be? And how are we connected with them? You know, I had a present moment awakening this morning as I put my tea bag in my cup of hot water. And I took my boiled eggs off the stove, and I felt my Father's presence. Now that's not unusual because I feel his presence a lot. But something shifted in me this morning. So I always have felt his presence, and as the daughter, the father, this morning was different. I felt his huge, giant soul that is so much bigger than the role of father and daughter that he and I had together when he was living in physical. He's a huge, eternal, spiritual being. And one of the pictures in his photo album is as my father. You hear what I'm saying? It released me from feeling any kind of missing of his physical presence because I'm aware more powerfully this morning than ever before of his huge, giant, light soul that goes beyond him having been in the role of father. That helps grief be released. It helps sadness be released from me of missing any of my beloveds who are no longer in physical. Huge, giant spiritual beings continuing their journey. So, this was on the Church of Facebook. If you didn't see it, I'll read it for you. Some people would rather debate doctrine or beliefs or tradition or interpretation than actually do what Jesus said. It's not rocket science, just do it. Practice loving a difficult person or forgiving someone. Give away some money. Tell someone thank you. Encourage a friend. Bless an enemy. Say I'm sorry. Worship God. You already know more than you need to know. Isn't that great? We already know more than we need to know.
That's part of the problem.
We already know what we need to do. You and I know what we need to do. You and I know when it comes time to forgive someone. And yet, we close our spiritual energy down and we resist the idea of forgiving an alleged enemy. The mystic teaches us to trust all bottoming out, all emptying experiences, all nothingness as the matrix of new birth. How many of us have had experiences that shake us to our core? Everybody in the room, I'm sure. Experiences in the world, circumstances that shake us. The mystics teach us that those are really the times when the chinks open, the windows and doors of heaven open, spirits poured out. So this writer says, in order to love who you are, you cannot hate the experiences that shaped you. Everybody take a deep breath. Oh, man. See, this is mystics, this is doctoral program for the mystics. Because we spend a lot of our lives telling the stories of the unhappy experiences that we've had, or things that were done to us, or things that happened that broke our hearts, and we tell those stories a lot, right? Until we don't. And one of the ways that we begin to loosen the grip on the pain is we begin to see that every life experience holds sacred presence. The experiences shape us. So we begin to ask the question, how is this experience leading me more fully or deeply into my life calling, my life awakening? How is this experience serving me, helping me, supporting me, lifting me? And it's not an easy question to ask when our hearts are breaking. So you've heard this quote, you can say it by heart, I share it here all the time. This is one of my most favorite ones. Thank you, Rumi. I wish I could, Hafiz, thank you, cousins. Hafiz, I wish I could show you when you are lonely or in darkness the astonishing light of your own being. That's what today's about, this burning bowl, is releasing those things that keep us from knowing the astonishing light of our own being. Eric Butterworth, one of our wonderful Unity teachers, he writes about the Epiphany. And next Sunday is Epiphany Sunday. So this week, during this week, we do our burning bowl and then we ponder. We know what we release, so what is it now that we open to? It's never just a release. It's always an opening too. You know that scripture that says, for now I see through a glass darkly. That there comes a moment when we see face to face. Have you ever had a moment where you look at yourself and you realize, beyond all the pain, beyond all the confusion, beyond all the anxieties, I'm a wondrous being. If you haven't had that experience, I pray with you that you will. It's the awakening. Eric Butterworth says there is a creative intention working in you. It is a force that transcends mistakes and wrong choices and makes all things work for good. If you haven't begun to write on that little piece of paper yet, it might be one word. I've got one word on my paper today. One word. It covers everything that I know I'm working on and that I need to release. And it's a word that I share with my collective, my family, my human family, my global family. It's a word that my whole global family is working with right now. Today, my ceremony is about releasing fear in any form.
Well, then you're done. That's it.
And here I thought you were going to say Trump.
And here you thought what?
I knew you were going to say Trump.
Trump.
I didn't say that.
Releasing of fear from the collective human consciousness. What a powerful day that will be.
Amen.
Let it be so in me today. So I'm writing on my paper today. I've already written it. Fear. Burning it in the fire. Symbolically releasing that from my cells, my atoms, my DNA, my energy field. I release fear. I don't want to be afraid anymore of people, places, events, future. I want to be clear of that in my energy. So we write on the slip of paper a few brief words that represent what we are ready to release from our lives. So last night I was watching BBC World News, and there was a wonderful segment on that PBS program about 2 university art professors from Syria who have set up a school in the Syrian refugee camps. And they've got about 40 people from ages 14 to 40 learning stonemasonry from these 2 art professors, with the idea that when they're able to return to their homes in Syria, that they will rebuild these ancient, beautiful buildings that existed before the war. Now, what did they have to release in order to move into this new idea, this audacious idea that they could train as stonemasons and go back into their countries at some point to rebuild? What do you have to release to do that? Fear, hopelessness, doubt.
You have to release the little box.
Release the smallness.
And realize how big you
Realize how big we are. They were talking about, these 2 art professors, that the main feeling in these refugee camps is hopelessness. Some of these kids have lived for the last decade in these refugee camps. And now they're, in their thinking, in their emotions, in their hearts and minds, they're planning to go back into their country at some point and have the skills to shape stone into beautiful works of art and rebuild their homes, their places of worship, their schools. What an incredible idea. So in a moment, we'll make our way to the back, and we're going to circle back here, and we're going to go by this table. David's going to go light the fire now, and he'll be back there to help manage the fire. Yes, there's a pitcher of water under the table, not to be used on you, but just in case. And you will drop your piece of paper into the fire, and in your consciousness, in your heart, in your mind, let this symbolize the release of whatever it is for you to uncover the light even more. So the band will play lightly while we're doing this. We're going to just lower the lights just a tad because we want to be able to see where we're going. So what if it's true? And ask you a question. What if it's true that you're the light of the world? What if it's true that you are the brilliant expression of the one presence? What if it's true that every atom of your being knows it's the light of the world? And what if it's true that within our DNA we have written already into our divine coding that we're the light of the world, due to be expressed at any moment? In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, we shall all be changed. This is one of those moments. It's our opportunity for shift and change and release. Let's take a deep breath. We're going to start from the back. If y'all on the back bench, see, back bench people think that they're hidden, but they're not. You can stand up and make your way over to the fire, and we'll just back row on this side begin and work up, and then this